Many people actually suggest drinking a gallon of water per day, but doing this could actually cause you more harm than good. Stay tuned to today's episode to find out why. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. Today, I have an interview with Tracy Duhs, who is a PhD. She is a hydration expert, and we talk about all things hydration, mineral balance, and what that truly means, what it means when the cells in your body cannot hold on to those minerals. And when you drink a ton of water, like a gallon of water a day, it actually washes away a lot of those minerals. So it's not the solution to necessarily guzzle water all day. Yes, there is a specific amount of water that we do need to bring into the body, but what's more important is that mineral balance. So this conversation is a really deep dive into mineral balance. And I mentioned this in the video I put out earlier this week, but if you would like me to create a hydration webinar, please comment in the comments below, and I would be happy to do that sometime in June for you guys. I'm really excited to keep teaching this information because it has been so life-changing for me. I used to be someone who literally chased electrolytes all the time and chased the water. Now that I really understand these elements and these principles of quantum physics, as well as circadian biology, my body naturally holds on to those minerals quite a bit better. So I do have some courses available now. If you want to jump into those, I have a 3-day circadian kickstart that is still 50% off for a couple more weeks. That will really help you get started in circadian biology. Again, 50% off. It's in the information section. And this conversation with Tracy and I really goes very much into depth on a lot of these hydration topics. There are timestamps down in the show notes for you guys so you can skip around, or if there's a particular part of this interview that you really enjoy, please feel free to go back and listen to it by using those timestamps. So I want to mention before we jump into the interview, 2 sponsors of today's episode. The first one is actually going to be Upgraded Formulas. Now, this is a really fantastic way to check and see if you do have a mineral imbalance without taking a bunch of things that you don't know if you necessarily need. So the Upgraded Formulas hair tissue mineral analysis, you can save on that by using my code YOGI12 or YOGI over on the Upgraded Formulas website with a consultation. So I always recommend getting that consultation because you're going to get those results and you're going to think it's one thing, but it's not. Sometimes a mineral can read high on a hair tissue mineral analysis, but it actually means that's because you are losing that mineral, not because you have too much of it. So that's why that consultation is very important when you check those minerals. But check out Upgraded Formulas to really get to the bottom of your mineral imbalances. And then the second sponsor of today's episode is Optimal Carnivore. This is their new Brain Nourish product, which I really love. It is desiccated beef brain and lion's mane. So we have been taking this here in my house for the last month and definitely seen an improvement in cognitive function, sharpness, memory, all of those things brain related. So check it out. Use my code Carnivore, uppercase Y, to save over on their products. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode and I will talk with you again soon. Have a great day. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming back and tuning in today. I'm really excited about my guest. She is a hydration expert, a PhD, and has her own podcast called the Hydrate Podcast. Tracy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share the drip.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about. I mean, we were just like talking so much before I turned on the recording button, but let's just talk a little bit about how you got to just really be a hydration expert and kind of a water expert.
First of all, I don't like that word expert for me because I feel like you have to be doing something like 100 years to be an expert, but I would say I'm a advocate, and it's something I've been studying for like 15, 20 years. And it's something that I love and am passionate about. And the more that I learn about water, the more humbled I become of how much I don't know. And so when I think about expert, it makes me like nervous because I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to learn. It's just, and it's like every day, new things are being uncovered that just bring so much humility. But the moment I realized that our bodies are made of 98.9% water molecules, I'd been suffering with just health issues since I was a kid. I think just being exhausted. I grew up in an area that was crop dusted over all the time. I lived in between fields, strawberry fields, lettuce fields. And so when I was a kid, I just remember seeing my friends that had a lot of energy and I didn't feel like I had as much. And you know that feeling where you're like, is something wrong with me?
Yeah, I
And
do.
I just always had this wonder of like, why do I feel like I always have headaches? I'm tired. Once I started going through puberty, I was getting cystic acne, but it wasn't like pustules. It was just like inflammation, like these like lymph
A
like lymph,
welt type of
yeah,
it.
like a
Yeah.
lymph welt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? It's like my skin is so angry, my body's so angry. And I would eat things and I'd feel nauseous. And so that kind of opened up my eyes and brought more compassion. And then my parents were missionaries. So I got to go on my own mission trip when I was 15 and a half. I got to go to this indigenous village in Guatemala. And boy, my eyes were just opened on that trip because I got to watch children having to walk 5 miles a day just to get their water. And it's like, water for what? To bathe in, to wash their clothes, to drink, to cook. And I realized how blessed we are to be able to just turn on the tap and go, wow, there's running water here. I can take a shower. I can do whatever I need. And then for the most part, our water's filtered from most protozoa, amoebas, things that are going to make us have gastrointestinal dysfunctions. So it was just interesting because a lot of these kids and adults were also sick because the water was contaminated that they were drinking. So many people were dying, children were sick. And I came home and I just had this heaviness in my heart thinking, I someday really want to make sure to go back to Guatemala and have a solution for this, or at least help, because this is so unfair, you know? So our journeys just unfold. It's so interesting how I really believe when divine has something that we're being called to in our life, it keeps coming back to us. So I was always interested in health and wellness from not feeling well. And then going into pre-med when I was 15 and a half and just learning about health and wellness and all these things. And going on that journey and then finally realizing, you know what, allopathic medicine doesn't necessarily resonate with me. I don't feel like I really want to help people, but I don't want to help them by cutting them open and giving them drugs and vaccines and shots. And that didn't resonate with my personal, certain things just feel like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm being called to this. And that didn't feel like that was my direction, my path. But I knew that I was interested in helping alleviate suffering with people, which I think we all are, but health and wellness was a big draw for me. So when I was 20, so I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. I ended up going into business and modeling and different things. But when I was 24, I got pregnant for my daughter, Grace. And it was really interesting because I'd always considered myself healthy, eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, exercising, taking my supplements, all the things that we would be told are healthy. Drinking the 8 glasses of water a day, the recommended things. And I was drinking filtered water, which is like, that's recommended. We drink clean water, make sure it's filtered. But I started having these severe symptoms where I would wake up in the middle of the night and my tongue would be stuck to the roof of my mouth, or I couldn't open my eyes because my eyeballs were so dry that my eyelids were stuck to them. I mean, it was like,
Wow.
it was crazy. It was like, what's going on inside of my body? So I just went through all these tests with the doctors. They thought it was this autoimmune condition. They didn't know what it was. And they're like, I don't know, all your labs are coming back great. You're fine. You're fine. So I just started drinking more and more water because I thought, well, maybe I'm just dehydrated. And on top of that, I was so thirsty. I could not quench my thirst. And it wasn't any type of, it wasn't anything to do with diabetes. It wasn't anything like that. It was like, that was all fine. My blood sugar is amazing. So I started to play with water because I was so obsessed with water. I could not get enough. And I realized that when I would drink filtered water, I couldn't quench my thirst. But when I drink spring water, my thirst was quenched longer. It wasn't fixing the problem, but it was like, okay, there's definitely a difference here. So I need to be drinking the spring water because the spring water is quenching more so. Well, come to find out, I had a mineral imbalance. And so my daughter, because of that, her amniotic fluid was low. And we ended up having to have an emergency cesarean at 35 weeks because the amniotic fluid was so low. It was like 2.3 centimeters, something like that. And they're like, we need to do an emergency cesarean right now.
Wow.
So no one in my family, I mean, my mom had 4 kids. My grandma on my mom's side had 6 kids. My grandma on my dad's side had 7 kids. They all had them natural. No one had cesareans. I thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a breeze for me. Like, I'm made to do this, you know? So a cesarean was not even like, that was like the farthest from my thoughts.
Yeah.
So when I had to go in to have an emergency cesarean because I didn't have enough amniotic fluid, it was like, oh, this is a surprise, but actually not, because I've been thirsty the whole time and just like something's off with the water balance in my body. Well, what I discovered later on after researching and learning is that our amniotic fluid, as well as our blood plasma, is identical to the ocean's amniotic fluid. And that balance of minerals and that water in there is really identical to what we're bathed in and what we grow in when we're a baby. And my mineral balance was off in my body. I had a severe mineral imbalance. So it didn't matter how much water I was drinking, my cells were not getting hydrated.
Yes.
And so I was dehydrated at the cellular level. All the water was passing through me. I'm just peeing it out, sweating it out, being eliminated. And when I discovered Quinton, which is these vials of ocean seawater, that they have 78 trace elements. So Rene Quinton in 1895 discovered that the ocean's plasma is identical to our blood plasma. The ratio of the minerals, the amount of minerals, everything. It has all the building blocks for life. Every element on the periodic table that we need to build life is in the ocean's plasma. So when I started taking this Quinton, I started to come back to life, like come back online. The dehydration, the dry eyes, the dry mouth, everything went away. And that really, really opened my eyes because I thought, gosh, I was suffering so much. And the answer was so simple. And I'd spent so much money going to naturopathic doctors, allopathic doctors, healers, whatever. Nobody uncovered that.
No one mentioned mineral balance at all?
No,
That's
no
so
one
crazy
even
to me.
thought about it. Yeah,
Wow.
isn't that interesting?
That's so crazy.
I had so many tests, like, stool samples, blood samples, hormone tests, saliva tests, all of it. I shouldn't say all of it because we've never done.
You could have done a hair tissue mineral analysis
I
and
did
seen
that.
your mineral. Did they not catch the imbalance then?
I did that too, but it wasn't correlated. because
Yeah.
I've been doing so many things. It wasn't like, oh, this is connected with it. It's so interesting.
Some HTMAs aren't going to show the minerals either. I've had people say, oh, I got an HTMA and they show it to me. I'm like, that's not showing me anything I need to see. Like, we got to see your minerals.
Yeah. I mean, this led me down this whole rabbit hole and journey because I really just started to think about, oh my gosh, so many people are suffering in their health. And so many people are probably like me, going to all these doctors, spending all this money. And maybe, just maybe, the answer is right under their nose. And it's just something so simple, like a mineral imbalance, or they're not connecting to the earth's resonance and letting their body relax and get tuned by the earth's frequencies. Or maybe they're not getting the right amount of sunlight. They're getting too much or too little, or they're missing something in their macro or micronutrition. You know, there's things that are just so simple that I realize we're not taught.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. And the things that we are taught are missing a lot of information. Like, yes, it's important to drink water. I know for myself, the things that I knew as a child were drink eight glasses of water and just make sure it's clean. Okay, that's part of the story. That's not the whole story that I need to know to live a life that is vital and where I feel alive and I'm thriving. So that's how I really started. I went back to school. I went to learn about herbs because herbs have so many minerals. I went back to learn about living foods, and I got into a PhD program that was going to help me understand our body, but from a more quantum perspective, from the frequencies and the sound and how everything's created through that. Wow. That was like the most fun journey. And everything that I do now, I feel like I just get to play all day learning. This is just so much fun. And then teaching people about it. So I've had a health and wellness functional medicine clinic for 16 years now. And we really just go back to the basics with people. What kind of water are you drinking? You know, going back to basics. And so many people start to come alive again with these little tiny tweaks that were kind of just missing in their daily habits.
What would you say some of those are, just for people listening? Because I think a lot of people are going to hear this conversation and they're kind of in that camp of like, just drink filtered water and you're fine. What would you have someone on a very basic level do?
Well, since our body's made of 98.9% water molecules, I would look at the water in your body and see, is your intracellular fluid balanced with your extracellular fluid? Because if the water we're drinking doesn't, in our extracellular fluid, doesn't have the right mineral balance, then first of all, it's not going to be able to penetrate into the cell adequately. And what happens is the cell, we call it kind of like left spin. So right spin is where it's in this really healthy spin and it's able to allow nutrition in and toxins out. And there's this really nice osmotic flow where the cells know, okay, we let this waste out and the lymphatic system drains it. It goes into the trash. Your body gets rid of it. The nutrients that you're eating are going into your cells. You're using them. You're utilizing them for energy. Your mitochondria is healthy. Okay, yes, our cells have this innate intelligence, but we get in the way. Our environment, the assault on our environment is affecting our body, bringing it out of balance. So even though our cells have this innate intelligence, there might be something getting in the way of your cells doing what they need to do. So what I say is, look at the water that you're drinking. Is it filtered water? If it's filtered, then it's usually filtered with a reverse osmosis system, or it could even be filtered with just a plain carbon block filter or distillation. So you want to look, what kind of filtration do you have? That's really important. And the type of filtration that you need is going to be dependent on what kind of water source you are coming from. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I can't just say, okay, if you live here and this is your water source, this is the kind of filtration you should be using. It's going to be dependent on what's in your water. But just to make it simple, let's just say reverse osmosis has very comprehensive membranes. An RO system, reverse osmosis, has very comprehensive membranes that will take out all of the chemistry and toxic caustic chemicals that are in your water that you don't want. And that's really important. But then it's going to leave you with clean water, but it's also void of the minerals that we need. It's also incoherent water. It's disorganized and it's going into your body and it's not energetically organized and balanced either. So you can take that water, you've broken it down energetically and biologically, chemically, it's been changed. But once you break it down, you need to build it back up. So you take that filtered reverse osmosis water and then let's add some minerals back into it. I love to add Quinton minerals because that has all 78 trace elements in perfect balance. So you're not, and that's made by nature, right? The ocean's plasma, it's made there. It's not made in a factory or, it's not manipulated in any way. It's just, they take the plankton bloom from the ocean, which is pure and has all 78 trace elements, but not only is the chemistry on point, there's this bioenergetic information inside of it that we still don't understand, but we can see that, oh my gosh, it's doing so much to bring the body back to life, but we don't really completely know what yet. That's still being discovered. But we know that it helps bring the body back into balance. So you want to take, I would prefer Quinton minerals, put them in the water. And that's like a huge upgrade.
Yes.
But if you also want to take the water now and give it this more coherent information, you want to bring the water back into a structured state, then that's where I like to say, start to move the water, vortex the water. A lot of vortexers are different, so you don't know specifically if this one's bringing into fourth phase water, like Gerald Pollack would say. But anytime you're vortexing, I don't think it can hurt. Just a vortex is going to be throwing off anything that isn't meant to be in the water and bringing in all of the minerals and energetic frequencies that should be. Because that's what happens in nature. The water is spinning, vortexing, and it's coming alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the best thing to do is, like, we're not God. We don't understand what's perfect, but we can look to nature and go, okay, what's happening here? And how can we try to mimic this? Because I don't think there's one person on this planet that would say, if they grabbed water from a clean living spring and drank that, and then drank some municipal water, that they wouldn't be able to tell the difference in how I think every human would be able to be like, okay, yeah, there's something about this water that feels different when I drink it. And so what is that? Let's look back to nature. What's happening? That water is getting purified and mineralized and vortexed. And all of these things are happening naturally. So when you drink it, it's like, oh, wow, this is refreshing. I feel hydrated. I feel alive. I mean, when I drink that kind of water, I feel energized. Like, ooh, wow.
Absolutely. And didn't Rene Quinton, didn't he use the Quinton minerals as like a plasma at one point for someone? Didn't he do like a transfusion for people who were dehydrated?
So what he started with was looking at animals, and it's really sad, but he used a dog, and he drained the blood out of a dog. And then when the dog was about to expire, he put isotonic Quinton back into the dog, and it came back, it revived, came back to life. And so what he realized is that this plasma has everything it needs to build new red blood cells. I mean, it's like perfect plasma. And in recent years, they've used porcine. They did pigs. They used pigs to do this again. But the interesting thing about this that shows that there's some bioenergetic information in this, and it's not just the chemistry, is they took a pig, they drained the blood, and then they put the Quinton back in, the pig came back to life. But then they're like, let's try something else here. Let's take the blood out of the pig, but then put the pig's blood right back in, and the pig still died.
Oh no.
So it's not just the chemistry. There's something living and active inside of this plankton bloom. And that's why these isotonic Quinton and hypertonic Quinton come in these double tip ampules, because that double tip ampule is preserving the bioenergetic information that's held in there. It's keeping it active.
Okay. And so hypertonic, I always tell people just to use that in your regular water. I don't know if that's correct, but I use the isotonic. If I get a headache at all, I am grabbing an isotonic ampule and taking that, and literally within about 20 or 30 minutes, the headache is usually gone. So I use the isotonic more like medicinally, and like, okay, I've got a headache or I'm having trouble sleeping. Is that what you say is kind of a better use of that one? Or do you have a different way that you use it?
Renee Quinton liked to call the isotonic Quinton the medicine. And that's what he used for people that were sick. So yes, if you have any autoimmune issues, or there's something you're struggling with, gut issues, anything really, he has his own protocol book, but you would use the isotonic. And so what you do is you open up one of those ampules, you put it in your mouth, and you swish it around for about a minute, because it's sending a message to all the cells in your body, because your epithelial tissue is like 1 cell thick. So it's sending a message to all of your cells that you have the building blocks for life. What it's also doing is it's bringing you out of fight or flight and back into rest and restore. So your body just becomes really calm. And if somebody's like having an anxiety attack or anxious, that'd be a really nice thing to give somebody to help just balance them out. Because the central nervous system's like, oh, whoa, I have all the nutrition and minerals that I need. And when you're mineralized, you feel really good. You feel really balanced.
You do.
When people are getting like angry on the freeway and stuff, I'm like, man, I would just want to give them a Quinton, you know, just like probably just so. I look at people that are, you know, there's a lot of mental health with children nowadays.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not a psychologist, not a medical doctor, but what I perceive is that a lot of people are missing the minerals that they need in their diet and their body. And I just wonder, I have the question, what if these children were mineralized? How would this look? Would it look different? The way that they feel, the way that their neurochemistry is working. I would love to get all children on Quinton. I think that would be huge.
Yeah, I buy so much of it because I do it for my family. Like all the water that we drink has Quinton in it. My daughter, my husband, myself, like it's that important because I feel that much of a difference with it. And you mentioned, your whole hydration kind of story came to a head really during pregnancy. And so you mentioned pregnancy and children. And I feel like people are starting, number one, pregnancy is kind of this dehydrating experience. I don't think people really take that into account. If you go into pregnancy with a mineral imbalance, the baby is going to try to take everything it needs from you and kind of make that worse. And then you're going to have a child that's again born with mineral imbalance. And so I feel like there's this whole cascading thing happening with our minerals, you know?
Absolutely. Robert Slovak likes to call these babies that take the moms that take Quinton while they're pregnant, Quinton babies. Because when you have all the building blocks for life and all of the minerals, the baby's face, they say, is going to be more symmetrical because it's coming together and forming this left and right hemisphere. It's going to be more balanced because it has everything that it needs to build. And I would agree with that. So many people that I have seen that have taken Quinton during their pregnancy and they have the baby, it's like, wow, the face just looks so balanced and it's incredible.
Wow. Yeah. I heard Robert on a podcast say, if you're even thinking about getting pregnant 6 months before, you should start doing like 3 ampules of hypertonic per day, just as preconception. You know, we talk about take your prenatal and take these other things, but we almost never have this conversation about minerals when it comes to something so vital like pregnancy. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. And also one thing to pay attention to is don't just start taking minerals like, oh, that's manganese, there's, zinc, this, that. I mean,
oh yeah,
you really throw your body out of balance if you're taking too much of one thing and not enough. I mean, God knows, and everything was made so perfectly in the ocean. Our bodies and our plasma were that it's the same. I mean, Renee Quinton discovered this, that it's the same as the ocean. And if you look to the scriptures, it says that, the ocean was created before we were created. And we come from the ocean.
From the sea. Yes.
Yeah, we come from the sea. And so let's look back to that and just go back to our roots instead of trying to do it ourselves and think that we know everything. It's like, okay, let's just go back to nature and say, okay, if we came from the ocean, we came from the sea, let's just get our minerals from there. It's already in perfect balance, exactly the way we need it. I see these companies that try to make minerals. So what I didn't say in the beginning was that, and I think this is important to bring up, when I discovered I was having a mineral imbalance and kind of like that hit me, I started playing with different types of mineral supplements. And some of them actually made me feel worse.
Oh, it's interesting you say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something to really bring up. And then I would look at what was in it and it's like, oh, it had like 3 or 4 of the minerals, or it's like this concentrate from a Great Lake, or
oh, that's a very popular one.
Yeah. And so my personal experience in my body, I was just so sensitive at that time. I could just feel every little thing that I would take and put in my body. Oh yes, I have energy today. Or yes, I feel like so much more balanced. I feel really good. Or, oh my gosh, that just made my energy field crash. And I feel like crap today.
Yeah, so a lot of my audience, we talked about this before we started, is they're following more of a low carbohydrate diet, which I think kind of puts you at more risk for mineral imbalance. I think I say this all the time, don't necessarily blame the diet. I think a lot of people go into the diet with a pre-existing mineral imbalance, but it's like pregnancy, it does uncover issues quicker because you don't have the carbohydrates there to hold that water in more efficiently. And so a lot of people still just struggle with dehydration when they're trying to follow this way of eating. And then they're like, well, I'm just going to drink more water. Someone do a consult with me the other day. She said, well, I'm drinking a gallon of water per day. And I was like, stop, stop doing that. Like we need to hold up, back up, let's stop.
You're drinking too much. And then we go into like so many other things where water has deuterium in it. The more water you're drinking, the more deuterium you're putting into your mitochondria, and deuterium is the heavy isotope of hydrogen and it's double the weight. And so what it's doing is it's going into the nanomotors of your mitochondria and causing mitochondrial death faster. So water is a double-edged sword because we need to be hydrated, but we don't want to be over drinking water. And so we want the water that we drink to be something that is hydrating us, that is like, we want to be drinking the most pristine water we can, that's already structured, that's purified, that's mineralized, all the things.
Yes.
So choose your water wisely.
Yeah. And would you say that someone should probably go with like a spring water that's going to be a little bit more ideal than reverse osmosis or just filtered water?
For sure. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. If you're going to choose, the first thing I would say, the most simple thing to do is if you're drinking filtered water, switch over to spring water. Now, I will leave a tiny little caveat here where Gerald Pollack, who is the scientist at the University of Washington that discovered the fourth phase of water, which is structured water, has tested different springs, and most of them are structured, but there are some that aren't, which is surprising to me. I don't know, maybe it's contaminated. I don't know, with missing minerals, but most is. And I would say like Mountain Valley spring water is a great one. That one always made me feel better.
We get that delivered in glass to the house. Like that's all we drink. And then I leave it out in the sun. Like I leave the bottles out in the sun and then we bring them in. And then I do even more stuff to it. But that's one. Yeah, I love that one.
I love it. I mean, you look so hydrated and very healthy. So you're doing something right. That's amazing. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the spring water activated in the sun, vortex it, put the minerals in it. You're doing all the things. It's amazing.
What do you think of the Annelemma wand? Have you looked into that one?
Yes, I have. And I actually just interviewed Dolph on my show.
Oh, did you? I was going to reach out to him. I'm going to listen to that one.
Yeah. So I'm doing an international hydration summit that's going to be coming out the end of May, and Dolph is part of it. But yeah, it's so interesting because what he says is in order to get the most perfect, structured, coherent water, it takes about a year, because you have to go with the moon cycles and the sun and nature, all of the different seasons. And so this water is being structured and informed throughout the year. So that wand that he has that water inside of the wand that's been structured and informed for the entire year. And so when you put that wand in your water, it's informing the rest of the water, and the rest of it's becoming structured like it. It's being mimicked. So you kind of like vortex it in. Yeah,
I have that. I just bought that. My husband's like, you just spent all that money on a wand. He's like, I think you've officially gone off the deep end.
Well, like, that's the interesting thing is that, I mean, if I had talked to someone like me 10 years ago, I probably would have thought the same thing,
Yeah,
like,
same.
But the more that I started to research and study it, it was like, it's undeniable, something that you can't deny. Now, are there people that are taking that information? Like, you're going to hear the word structured a lot.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And are there people that maybe don't really understand it, or making these devices that haven't really been tested? We don't know if it's fourth phase water. Yes, there are. And for people that don't really understand it, they're just going to see the word structured and buy it. And that's difficult, because as a consumer, we want to see the word organic. We want to see structured. We want to see all these things and just trust. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I heard structured's good, so I'm going to go buy this, and that's going to help me. But that's not always the case. So yeah, I have the products that I've tested to make structured water, the things that I use, I have put on my own website, just because this is what I do. It's not something that most of you do. So I've taken the work and done it myself so that you can say, okay, I can trust this is fourth phase water or a good product. We sell the Quinton vortexers, all that stuff on our website. And it's graceandparker.com.
Okay. And I'll make sure I link that in the show notes for everyone to go check that out, because I always get people sending me like, oh, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? I'm like, well, I haven't vetted it. I don't really know. I know the Annelemma wand is good. I know Quinton's good, but I haven't done a ton of testing of different vortexers or things like that. And I don't want to have people go out and, I want to have people use their money wisely. Because like you said, there are so many gimmicks and there are so many people out there saying that they're selling something that's not really going to be helpful. So I love that. And I'll definitely link that for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My dog Hannah is barking at a bird. So sorry.
That's okay. If FedEx or UPS comes by, you'll hear mine. So it's totally fine. You keep on bringing up Gerald Pollack, which I know, and I've read his book, and a good friend of mine has interviewed him. I love his work, but I think a lot of people don't really understand this whole fourth phase of water thing and the water inside of our body and how we deplete that, because people will say stuff like, oh, stress will cause you to lose water, but they don't talk about like, what is that and how do we counteract that? So what would you say some kind of easy solutions for that type of thing would be?
Well, first of all, I think to understand a little bit of what fourth phase water is. So Gerald Pollack, the researcher at the University of Washington, discovered that, well, first of all, when we're drinking water, we've been taught that we're drinking H2O. That is a very small part of the story because we're drinking so many different molecules that are beyond H2O. We're drinking, for example, deuterium, D2O, HDO, H2O. And our body is taking those molecules of H2O and it's converting it into H3O2 within the cell. And your body's using a lot of energy to do that. It's making this conversion because all of the water within your cell needs to be structured. That's really important because this molecular structure, H3O2, isn't like hexagonal sheet-like structures, and it's holding information. It's more of a gelatinous structure. It's not liquid, it's not vapor, it's not solid, it's fourth phase, and fourth phase is like a gel-like structure. And that gel-like structure within the cell is what is allowing our cells to communicate. There's this charge potential inside of it. It's like it has the information and the charge and everything it needs for the cells to communicate. Like your cell phone, you have to plug it in order for it to stay charged. Our bodies need our personal cells to be charged. And if they're not, the cells can't talk to each other. The cells are not communicating properly, then they're not going to know what to do. They have this innate intelligence. They know exactly what to do. But if they can't communicate, they're not going to be able to be like, oh, that cell needs to go into apoptosis because this cell we don't have around anymore. Let's not replicate this cell because this one's not healthy. Or they know, but yes, if they can't communicate, they can't do their job. So then we get sick and unhealthy cells. And when we use that we lose that voltage, that charge. If I wasn't charging my cell phone, I wouldn't be able to turn it on. It eventually wouldn't give me information. If we're losing that charge in our bodies, we start to degrade very quickly. So we want to make sure that the water inside of our cells is fourth phase. And that fourth phase water, there's a lot of things that contribute to that. One of them is light. Infrared energy. Our bodies are already and have this infrared energy that's doing that. So if you didn't go into the sun for a while, you would still be converting it, but you need light, you need sunlight. We are light beings. And that photonic, that spectrum of light, full spectrum, is feeding our cells this nutrition that we need. That's why we eat plants, because they have that fourth phase water. They have that light energy. That's why it's better to eat fresh plants, like straight from the vine, because there is this, through Kirlian photography, we can see that, oh, there's this energy in there that's more potent when it comes straight off the vine, as opposed to sitting in your refrigerator for a week or so. So it's this energy, this voltage. We want ourselves to have that. And the way we lose it can be non-native electromagnetic frequencies, stress, negative thoughts, not connecting to the earth and charging ourselves with the earth's energy, not getting enough sunlight, not getting good water. I have on my page, my Instagram page, 9 pillars of health. I wrote out these pillars because I'm like, these are the ones that I feel are the most important, that if you're missing any of them, you're not going to be healthy. You can be taking all the supplements, you could be doing all the things, but if you're missing one of these pillars, your health is going to be compromised.
Yeah. And I don't know if I can remember all of them, but I know one of them is sunlight. One of them is grounding, obviously hydration. What are the other ones?
So there's
movement.
Yes, movement. They've studied that in order for your tissues to get hydrated, and your fascia has these like little water droplets on it. So the water needs to move and get inside your fascia and all around, because there can be dehydrated parts of your body, dehydrated tissue. Think about your joints as like sponges, they need that hydration. They need to be juicy and lubricated. And so we want to move them. Like even my fingers, I'm like constantly like stretching, moving. Every part of my body, my ankles, your neck, every joint, you want to be moving it. And in different ways too. Like you don't want to just be doing that same direction. You want to move it in different directions. But there's hydration, nutrition, sunlight, grounding, movement, creative playtime. I say we want to like have creative playtime because that's getting us excited. When we get into our creative juices, we're like, the brain's moving, we can rest and restore. Connected community. We need community. We need hugs. We need to look into other people's eyes, eye gazing, seeing into people, loving. That support and that connection really charges us up, and we are made for connection. And I think our world's become so isolated and we're living behind a screen, and that's really affecting our health. My family, my dad's a pastor and missionary, and we go to convalescent homes. Well, before COVID, we would go a lot. It's harder now, but so many of those people are deteriorating in those convalescent homes because they're not touched. They don't have anyone to talk to and no one to listen to them. And it's like, you can just see their health declining because they're missing one of the vital things that we need to thrive in this world. And that is connection. Sleep, sunlight. I didn't go in order, so now I didn't count. Sure, I got them all. Minerals is another one. We want to make sure that our minerals are balanced, and if we don't have minerals, we're not going to have the building blocks for life. Minerals are the elements on the periodic table that are the elements for biogenesis, for building new cells. So if I missed any, I can't remember which ones I said, but you can go on my Instagram, Tracy Duhs, TracyDuhs, and I keep reposting it because I think it's really important for people to see.
That was one of the first things I saw on your profile, so it's definitely easy to find.
Yeah, it's so important that, I mean, I know it changed my life. Those 9 pillars, once I started living by them, everything in my body changed. It was like, oh my gosh, I feel alive again. I feel like better than I did when I was a little kid. Those feelings of feeling nauseous or tired all the time, they're not there anymore. I literally wake up every morning with clarity, I get out of bed, nothing in my body hurts. I feel like so excited for the day. I mean, obviously there's days that are a little harder, but the majority of the days I'm just like astounded at how I feel compared to how I felt when I was in my teens and my 20s. It's like, I'm not even the same person. I used to wake up with joint pain. My knees would hurt. I'd have headaches a lot. I felt foggy and tired. And, it takes you a couple hours to just like kind of like hatch in the morning. And I don't have any of that anymore. I'm just like, let's go work out. Let's go play. Let's, what's
You have
up?
two
What are we doing
teenagers
next?
too, so that says a lot.
I have two teenagers. My daughter just told me yesterday, she's like, all my friends at school said that you're the original boss mom. Like, you're just, I'm like, that's so sweet. Like, you never know what teenagers are gonna say about you. So when my daughters like want to hang out with me and play and they actually care what I have to say, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is cool. I feel like it's because the vitality that I have in my body, people are attracted to that. They want to be, everyone wants to have vitality. Everyone wants to have that energy, that verve for life, that excitement, that I feel great. And I want to share this with you. Who doesn't want that, right? So if we're all kind of living by those 9 pillars, we're going to thrive. But so many kids now are indoors under non-native
video games,
EMFs. Yeah, they're behind a
iPads.
screen, not really connecting, touching, feeling, enjoying, looking into their friends' eyes, having empathy, compassion, going into the sunlight, taking their shoes off, running around outside. I make my kids ground with me. Like we went to the Santa Cruz Mountains and I'm like, we're going to go for a hike barefoot in the mountains. I'm like, okay. We're like climbing trees and
I love it.
It's the best. You come alive again. And you're like, wow, okay. Remember when you were a kid, you used to do all that stuff, and why do we forget it? I don't know why.
Well, I think once you start doing it, you want to keep doing it. I mean, I started kind of listening to people talk about the benefits of grounding, and I was a little bit skeptical, but then I started grounding and seeing sunrise every single day. And I've been doing that for a year straight, and I haven't missed a day, because it feels so good. Because once you understand your body is a battery, right? And to charge your battery, we need things like minerals. We need to touch the earth. We need to touch trees. We need to touch rocks and things like that. That's how we can recharge. Just like your cell phone, if we don't ever recharge it, you're not gonna be able to use it. The body is no different. It just is a little easier for us to get away with it because we don't see the power signal going down. We just start gradually feeling more tired. We start gradually doing this thing we call aging. But if we can properly learn how to implement like these 9 pillars you have, I feel like we're all going to be much better off for it and not have these horrible symptoms of aging like so many people do.
Yeah, aging is a disease, and these pillars are like, they've been around forever. Everybody, nature has given them to us. I just put them down on a piece of paper, like, oh yeah, like nature gave us these, and these are the things that I personally know. If I don't follow these every day, I feel different, and it makes a big difference. So I'm so grateful that everything that we really need has already been given in nature. I love all the toys and the gadgets. I've got the biocharger, the PEMS, like I've got all the fun stuff, but I will tell you that nothing compares to just nature and all of these 9 pillars, and everything in these 9 pillars are really just things you can get in nature, and they're there. And I don't believe that being thriving and being healthy should just be for the rich or the biohackers or the people that are, have the money to spend. It should be for everyone, every single person on this planet. And it's there. It's just that we've forgotten a lot of it. So.
Absolutely. Well, there's like 20 more questions I want to ask you, but we're going to go ahead and wrap pretty soon because I know you got to run and I got to run. Where can people find you if they want to listen to your podcast? I know you mentioned one website. Is there any other place that's going to be good for them to find you?
Yeah, they can go to my website. It's tracyduhs.com. So TracyDuhs. And there you can find links to everything. My other websites, my online store, my favorite hydration supplements, my podcast, Or you can find me on social media. I'm really active on Instagram, and it's the same, Tracy Duhs, just at Tracy Duhs. And I would love to connect with you there. And if you have any questions or there's any way that I can be of support, I'm really delighted to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It was lovely to connect with you.
You're so welcome.